Imagine waking up next Monday morning. You check your phone and the news is chaos. You go to the coffee shop and your credit card is declined. You try the ATM and it says out of service. This isn't a technical glitch. It isn't a power outage. It is a financial heart attack. Over the weekend, while America was sleeping, a switch was flipped on the other side of the world. A financial infrastructure that has been built in the shadows for the last 10 years was suddenly turned on, and the US dollar was turned off. We aren't talking about a stock market crash. We are talking about a 50 trillion kill switch that China has been constructing to bypass the United States entirely. It is a weapon more powerful than any nuclear bomb because it doesn't destroy buildings. It destroys the value of the money in your pocket. Today, we are going to expose exactly what this kill switch is, how close they are to using it, and why the Federal Reserve is terrified of what happens next. Welcome back to George Vance Live. We are the channel that uncovers the economic truths that the mainstream media is too afraid to touch. We dig into the data, the geopolitics, and the money trails to show you what is really coming for your wallet. Today's episode is arguably the most important one we have ever done. We are investigating the nuclear option of global finance. China has planned to delete the US dollar from global trade. Before we open this classified file, do me a massive favor. Please hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell right now. We are building a community of people who want to be prepared, not scared. And your support helps us keep the lights on and the research flowing. It takes 1 second, and it ensures you stay ahead of the curve. Now, let's analyze the threat. To understand the kill switch, we first have to understand the trap that the United States set for itself. For the last 80 years, the US dollar has been the world reserve currency. This is a fancy way of saying that the dollar is the oxygen of the global economy. If China wants to buy oil from Saudi Arabia, they have to use dollars. If Brazil wants to sell soy to Japan, they use dollars. This system, known as the SWIFT system, gives the United States immense power. It allows us to print money without immediate inflation, and it allows us to sanction any country we don't like. We can effectively turn off a country's bank account. But in 2022, we used that weapon against Russia. We froze their assets. And while that hurt Russia, it terrified China. Beijing realized that they were building their house on American land. They realized that at any moment, Washington could flip a switch and destroy China's economy. So China decided to build a switch of their own, a kill switch for the dollar. They decided that instead of just playing the game, they would build an entirely new casino. And the scale of this new casino is staggering. It involves over $50 trillion in assets, resources, and trade agreements that are being moved outside of the US dollar system. So, what exactly is this mechanism? It is not just one thing, it is a three-pronged attack. The first prong is technological. It is called Project mBridge. You might not have heard of this on the nightly news, but here on George Vance Live, we track central bank movements closely. mBridge is a digital platform developed by the Bank of International Settlements and the People's Bank of China. Think of the current system like an old-fashioned post office. If you want to send money from Thailand to China, it has to go through a US bank in the middle. It takes days, and it costs money. Project mBridge is like sending an instant message. It allows central banks to swap their digital currencies directly, peer-to-peer, in seconds. It completely bypasses the US banking system. It bypasses the dollar. It bypasses the sanctions. This platform is already live. It is being tested right now. And it has the capacity to handle trillions of dollars in trade flow. If China convinces the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and their new members, to move their trade onto mBridge, the demand for the US dollar vanishes overnight. It is like unplugging the internet for the dollar, while everyone else is on a new, faster network. The second prong of the kill switch is physical. It is about resources. You can't eat digital currency, and you can't build tanks with paper money. You need commodities. China has spent the last decade securing the rights to the actual stuff the world needs. We are talking about the Belt and Road Initiative. China has loaned hundreds of billions of dollars to countries in Africa, South America, and Asia. In return, they have secured rights to lithium, cobalt, copper, oil, and farmland. This is where the $50 trillion figure comes from. It is the estimated value of the resources and future GDP of the BRICS Plus alliance. China is now telling these countries, we will buy your resources, but we won't pay in dollars. We will pay in yuan. This is the birth of the petro-yuan. For 50 years, the petrodollar was the anchor of the American economy. Saudi Arabia sold oil only in dollars, but recently we have seen the Saudis open to accepting yuan. If the global energy market stops using dollars, the US loses its exorbitant privilege. All those trillions of dollars that are currently overseas, being used to buy oil, will come flooding back to America. And when that much money floods back home, you get hyperinflation. That is the button China is waiting to push. The third prong is the ultimate store of value, gold. You cannot launch a new currency on trust alone. Nobody trusts the Chinese Communist Party not to manipulate their currency. So, to make this kill switch work, China needs collateral. They need something that proves their money is real. That is why China is hoarding gold at a pace we have never seen before. Official reports say they have around 2,200 tons, but investigative analysts believe the real number is 10 times that amount. They are draining the vaults of London and Switzerland. They are buying gold off the books. Why? Because they are preparing to issue a trade currency that is backed by gold. Imagine a world where you have two choices. You can hold the US dollar, which is backed by $34 trillion of debt, and a government that prints money to pay its bills. Or you can hold a BRICS currency that is convertible to gold. Which one would you choose? Which one would a central bank in Africa or South America choose? The moment China links the yuan or a BRICS coin to gold, they flip the switch. They expose the dollar as a fiat currency with no clothes. Let's play out the scenario. How does this actually happen? It probably won't be a press conference where Xi Jinping declares war. It will likely happen during a geopolitical crisis. Let's say tensions over Taiwan reach a boiling point. The US threatens sanctions. Instead of waiting to be sanctioned, China activates the kill switch. They issue a directive to all their trading partners. As of today, we will no longer accept US dollars for our exports. If you want our rare earth minerals for your tech, if you want our manufactured goods, you must pay in digital yuan via the mBridge system. Simultaneously, they dump their holdings of US Treasury bonds. China currently holds roughly $800 billion of US debt. If they sell it all at once, the US bond market crashes. Interest rates in America would spike to 10% or 15% overnight. The US stock market would collapse. The dollar would plummet in value against gold. It would be a digital Pearl Harbor. The US economy would freeze because the cost of borrowing money would become impossible for businesses and homeowners. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. George, this sounds like a Tom Clancy novel. Does this really affect me? The answer is yes, and it affects you more than you realize. The stability of your daily life depends on the dollar being the world reserve currency. If this kill switch is activated, we are looking at a scenario of imported inflation. Right now, we get cheap goods from overseas because the dollar is strong. If the dollar crashes, the price of everything at Walmart, Target, and Amazon doubles or triples. Electronics, clothes, furniture, anything made abroad becomes a luxury item. But it gets worse. The US government relies on foreign nations buying our debt to fund Social Security, Medicare, and the military. If China stops buying and the dollar loses its status, the government has to print money just to keep the lights on. We aren't talking about 8% inflation. We are talking about 20%, 30%, 50% inflation. Your savings account, which you worked your whole life to build, loses half its purchasing power in a year. The American dream of retiring comfortably relies on the dollar staying strong. China's kill switch is designed to break that dream. We also have to look at our own weakness. The US banking system is currently sitting on massive unrealized losses. We saw what happened with Silicon Valley Bank. That was a tremor. The China kill switch would be the earthquake. If interest rates spike because China dumps our debt, hundreds of US banks would instantly become insolvent. Their assets, which are mostly bonds, would be worth pennies on the dollar. The Federal Reserve would have to print trillions to bail them out, which only accelerates the inflation problem. It is a vicious cycle. China knows this. They know exactly how fragile our banking system is because they have studied the 2008 crisis. They know that leverage is our weakness, and they are designing a system to pull the rug out from under that leverage. However, here on George Vance Live, we believe in being balanced. We have to ask, if they have this weapon, why haven't they used it? Why is the dollar still strong today? The answer is mutually assured destruction. The Chinese economy is still dependent on the American consumer. If they crash the dollar today, Americans stop buying iPhones and sneakers. Chinese factories close. Millions of Chinese workers lose their jobs. This leads to social unrest, which is the one thing the Chinese Communist Party fears more than America. They are currently in a race against time. They are trying to build up their internal consumer base, trying to get Chinese people to buy Chinese goods, so they don't need the US anymore. They are also trying to diversify their trade to Europe, Africa, and the global south. They haven't flipped the switch yet because they aren't fully insulated from the blast. But every month that goes by, they get a little less dependent on us, and we get a little more dependent on debt. The gap is closing. We also need to talk about the terrifying rise of CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. China is miles ahead of the US with the digital yuan. This isn't like Bitcoin, which is decentralized. This is programmable money controlled by the state. The digital yuan allows China to bypass SWIFT completely. It allows them to send money to Russia or Iran without the US being able to see it or stop it. It is the stealth bomber of finance. But it also gives them total control. They can program the money to expire. They can track every cent. The danger for the US is that other countries might prefer the digital yuan system because it is faster and cheaper, even if it is less free. If the digital yuan becomes the standard for trade in Asia, the dollar gets pushed out of the fastest growing region in the world. The kill switch isn't just about destroying the dollar, it's about replacing the democratic financial system with an authoritarian one. So how do we know this is getting closer? We look for the signals. Signal 1, central bank gold buying. In 2023 and 2024, central banks bought gold at record levels led by China. They are voting with their wallets. Signal 2, the expansion of BRICS. Countries are lining up to join. Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, the UAE. These are key strategic locations for global trade and energy. Signal 3, the quiet sell-off of US treasuries. China's holdings of US debt have dropped to the lowest level in 14 years. They are slowly exiting the building before they set it on fire. These aren't conspiracy theories. These are data points available on the Federal Reserve's own website. The pieces are being moved into place on the chessboard. The checkmate maneuver is being prepared. Is it game over? Not yet. The United States still has advantages. We have the deepest capital markets, the strongest military, and the best innovation in AI and technology. But to stop this kill switch, we need to get our financial house in order. We need to stop printing money like it's confetti. We need to encourage manufacturing to come back home so we aren't dependent on potential enemies for our medicine and technology. And we need to offer the world a better deal than China is offering. If we continue to weaponize the dollar and run massive deficits, we are practically begging the world to switch to China's system. Finally, let's talk about you. If this scenario plays out, even partially, the traditional 60-40 portfolio of stocks and bonds is dead. Bonds get crushed in an inflationary spike. The smart money is doing what China is doing, diversifying hard assets, gold, silver, land, commodities, things that have intrinsic value. Self-custody, ensuring you have access to your assets if the banking system freezes. Debt management, paying off variable rate debt before interest rates explode. You don't have to panic, but you have to be positioned. Betting everything on the status quo is the riskiest bet you can make right now. To wrap this up, the $50 trillion kill switch is real. It is a combination of digital infrastructure, resource control, and gold accumulation designed to end the American century. It is not a matter of if China wants to do it, but when they feel safe enough to pull the trigger. The world is splitting into two distinct economic blocks, the West and the rest. The friction between these two blocks is going to cause volatility, inflation, and uncertainty. But by watching channels like this, you are already one step ahead of the herd. You know what to look for. This is a story that changes week by week, and we are going to stay on top of it. We are tracking the gold flows, the mBridge updates, and the bond yields, so you don't have to. I want to hear from you in the comments below. Do you think China will actually pull the trigger and crash the dollar, or are they too afraid of the economic fallout? Let me know your theories. I read through as many as I can to see what the community is thinking. If you found value in this deep dive, please smash that like button. It really helps the algorithm show this video to more people who need to wake up to this reality. Share this with a friend who is worried about the economy. And of course, if you haven't already, subscribe to George Vance Live. We are your eyes and ears in the financial war. Thanks for watching, stay sharp, and I'll see you in the next one.